went to Hayes' program, and like 2 stories broke out during the show, during that hour. Like the Muslim ban, and then Donald Trump's already attempting to sever himself from Paul Ryan, throwing Ryan under the bus, Ryan throwing his own plan under the bus.
A lot of buses.
There was a lot of buses.
But it's preliminary buses.
Preliminary buses. Let's play that one, because that's that. Let's play number 6. As you know, the Republican plan to repeal and replace Obamacare is a disaster from a policy standpoint. If you believe the CBO numbers, 24 million people will lose their insurance by 2020. To be fair, if you believe the White House numbers, 26 million will lose their insurance coverage by 2020. And also, to be fair, for 35-year-olds making over $50,000 a year, insurance will go down. For everybody else, the premiums and out-of-pockets will go up. But that's the price for freedom.
It's preliminary price for freedom.
But so here is Tucker Carlson sitting down with Donald Trump after, I imagine, they exchanged pleasantries about their respective hairs. And Tucker Carlson says, you know, all the reports seem to suggest that this is really bad for the people who voted for you. And here is Donald Trump taking Paul Ryan and throwing him under the bus. Not by name, but I think it's pretty clear.
Bill has as one of its centerpieces a tax cut for investors that would primarily benefit people making over $250,000 a year. Already done pretty well in the past 10 years, as you know.
Yeah.
A Bloomberg analysis showed that counties that voted for you, middle class and working class counties, would do far less well under this bill than the counties that voted for Hillary, the more affluent counties.
I know.
It seems like maybe this isn't consistent with the message of the last election.
No, a lot of things aren't consistent, but these are going to be negotiated.
There you have it. A lot of things are not consistent, and these things are going to be negotiated.
Yeah, a lot of things aren't.
Now, here's the thing that is frustrating me about this, about the entire conversation around here. And that is basically the same thing, one of the same things that have been frustrating me for some time. There's this notion that somehow, you know, Paul Ryan has not stuck up to, has not stood up to Donald Trump, and he's going to get his due. This is Paul Ryan's plan. If anything, it has been muted in some respects than Paul Ryan's original plan. The Republicans passed in 2015 in both the House and the Senate a repeal and replace bill. They sent it to President Obama. He, of course, vetoed it. The idea that the establishment media, the Beltway media, that the talking heads on TV, that every single person isn't talking about how craven were and are the Republicans. Rich Lowry wrote a piece that I think actually really, in many respects, is interesting analysis. In other respects, continues to cloud the issue. He writes, the bill has had the worst rollout of any major piece of legislation in memory. The failures, and failure is very much an option. That was actually a title of one of my scripts and a story written about me in the Boston Globe. Put that aside. If the proposal falters, it will be a political debacle that could poison President Trump's relationship with Congress for the duration. Let's hope. This is a product of how the Republican sweep of 2016 was won on separate tracks. Trump tore up many Republican orthodoxies and went out and found a different way to unlock the electoral map. First of all, this notion that Trump tore up many Republican orthodoxies is BS. He de-emphasized that he wouldn't cut entitlements. And then beyond that, that was basically it. Right, the overt racism. Right, that was contrary to Republican orthodoxy, which is really a little bit more
Covert.
subtle or racism. Nevertheless, congressional Republicans more or less stuck with the usual script. And of course, he's being very clear not to point out what that is. Kept Trump at arm's length, held their majorities in the House and the Senate. The faction most favorable to Trump, the House Freedom Caucus, is made up of ideological conservatives whose philosophy is at odds with Trump's economic populism, even if they're drawn to his anti-establishmentarianism. Perhaps. There was no off-the-shelf Trump legislation that Congress could begin on immediately. In the campaign, Trump identified a constituency and a message, but the agenda was often symbolic. The natural reflex then was to defer to the Republican leadership in Congress. Trump could have come roaring out of the gate with one of his distinctive proposals, the $1 trillion infrastructure plan, and wooed Democrats to support it and dared Republicans to oppose it. Instead, infrastructure has been put off for a second year, a polite way of saying it may not happen at all. That's true, because Donald Trump obviously didn't even care about that at all.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't. It's preliminary.
The congressional priorities are Obamacare repeal and tax reform, both of which could have easily been the first-year agenda items of the aforementioned hypothetical Presidents Bush, Rubio, or Cruz. They will have to be passed without Democratic votes and through the Senate reconciliation process that circumvents the filibuster. It's true that Trump promised to deliver on both, but neither were part of his core message. The Speaker is pursuing simultaneously with repeal because that's Trump's preference, as opposed to just replace. The President's been supportive of Ryan's bill while maintaining his flexibility. Look, the idea that this repeal and replace bill wouldn't have run into the same headwinds, or a different one wouldn't have run into the same headwinds with a President Bush or Rubio, is ridiculous. There is no way for the Republicans to deal with this question unless they are honest about it, which is, we don't want to cover anybody. We just want a tax cut. I guess theoretically they could have repealed, left nothing, and let the whole thing go into a complete chaos situation. But you would have still seen the same numbers. You would have seen the CBO come out and score what happens when you repeal this. And that is an $800 billion tax cut for that same group of people making over $200,000 as individuals, $250,000 as a couple. And you would have seen the same numbers of uninsured. So this whole notion that somehow this is just a function of Trump is making it harder for the Republicans in Congress, no doubt. But the fundamental problem the Republicans have is they're selling basically rotted fruit, and it's in cellophane packaging, and we can see it.
Maybe they want to eat rotted fruit. Maybe that's freedom.
That's freedom. They
There you
get the
go.
freedom to have the...
Actually, in fact, when we look at we don't even have time to get to the USDA agenda, but yeah.
But the problem that we have in our politics is that Rich Lowry can write this, and there's no Democrats out there who are leading the charge against this.
That's not true.
I mean, that's the problem. Is there's
Fake
no
news.
There's the resistance, and there's a certain inevitability about this, is anti-Trump. And
Breaking news.
And it is not anti-Republican policies.
As we predicted and said a gazillion times.
And so so everybody, and I mean everybody, is on board the Protect Obamacare train.
The Communist Party USA to Jonathan Chait to, in practicality, Susan Collins.
A whole array of people. Instead of how can we take the next step with the Affordable Care Act. Hey, folks, Sam Seder here. Donald Trump can kiss all of our asses. And one way he can is by you subscribing to this channel. I don't know how that works.